All right, next we're going to move to release planning. Release planning in the Agile world, and release planning specifically with Scrum, is taking advantage of the iterative nature and the iterative pattern of Scrum. And that means we have a chance now to do something, build it, look at it, and get it. If we do our due diligence up front and we think about things in the right way, we're going to be able to deliver something at the end of that time period that has value to somebody, value to us in terms of the fact that we can get something out and we can get feedback back from users, and value to our end customers where they've got something that is usable. Maybe not completely usable in the end state that we would like it to be or that we're designing the end product to look like, but there's something there. And there's a lot of value in getting value out quickly and getting feedback quickly, because what it does is it enhances the end product overall. And it also can help you a lot of times take less steps or take different pivots during your design phase and during your or time building. When I say design phase, we'll talk about design thinking later. That process of designing and building and kind of interweaving with each other, and make it more effective. It's not necessarily about efficiency, although it does end up in the end typically being more efficient, but it's about being really effective. So we've got two examples here. We've got row one. Row one shows us building a car in 4 steps. It shows us creating a wheel, putting 2 wheels together, and then putting a frame on it, building the body around the frame, and then having a finished car at the end of that final step. And you can see the little happy faces and sad faces at the top. A sad face is like this is a customer waiting for something. They haven't received any value yet. The happy face is they received what it is they were expecting to get in the end, in the very end. Now, this is a typical manufacturing process that has been around for a long time. You have a design, you design a car, you spend a lot of time designing that car. It's a very complex thing. You put all these different pieces together and you start designing the elements, and then you start assembling the car as they come together, and then you have the end car roll off the lot. And row two, this is a little more of a modern approach towards it. Now, at first, it may look like it's a little more inefficient because you've got 5 steps versus 4. You're not. It appears to me at first glance that I'm not reducing complexity. I'm making it harder. I'm building things that aren't in the end spec for the thing that I'm trying to build, which is a car. And I've got more. It just seems like it's not the way to go intuitively from a lot of folks in their experience. However, this is the modern way of thinking about putting new products out. And there are several reasons for that. We're going to go over that now. High level and release planning. There's a lot to release planning. We're not going to cover it all in our Agile Explained sessions, but let's go over some of the basics. The reason you're looking for the primary reason below is you're getting value to a end user faster, and you're getting value yourself for the work that you've done faster. If you look at the little happy faces, the heads above each stage. In stage one, yeah, they're getting something that's usable, but it's really far off from what the end product's going to be, right? It's a skateboard. So, yeah, I'm not really happy. But they have something they can use and tinker around with and give you feedback on, which is good. You may choose to, or you may not choose to release that, but let's say that you do. You get some information back. You come up with your second iteration around moving towards that car. You're taking things that you've learned from the first release on number one with the skateboard, and now you're applying it to the scooter stick. Right. So now you've got a handle on there. It's a little more advanced. You've got a little more features. Now you're starting to get a little bit closer. The users like it. You've taken some of their feedback in. You've now got that feedback into the product. And as you move along on this line, again, this is an overly simplified version. I understand that. But in moving this, what you're trying to show is that I've got usable product at more stages of the production and design and development and release phase of what's going on. So I'm releasing smaller bits of different types of ways to get around. Now, what's the value of a car? The value of the car is to move somebody from point A to point B. So in the first example, you're producing a car and you don't get any value for moving anybody until you get all the way to 4. In the second example, you can actually move people. In example 1, it's not a great way to move people. You're not carrying all your friends and your surfboards out to the beach, but you are able to have some mobility. In number 2, even more. In number 3, even more. In number 4, now it's powered even more, right? And in 5, you're finally getting to what you want to do. So the interesting thing is here, there's several things to think about. You're getting usable value out there faster. You're getting feedback from and getting valuable data back from your users quicker that you can then turn around and apply. You could take things that you assume in the first one that are going to be good in that first car, and instead of finding out until you get the car all the way out, you're finding out things that could be applied to the car later. You notice the car in number 5 looks a little bit different than car 4. That car in the second row has had a lot more user input applied to it than the car in number 4. Number 4 is designed, developed, and released, and then the user gets to see it and use it and try it out and give you feedback. Whereas in the second line, they're trying this stuff out all the way through. Now, does everything work this way? No, not everything works exactly this way, but this is an example to show you that you need to be thinking about, how do I release in smaller units, even if I have a little bit of throwaway stuff? And in the software world, that's a lot easier than the physical world. But in the software world, thinking about this, how do I do this in such a way that I can get user feedback quick, I can get data feedback quick, I can apply that, and I can get a more delightful product at the end of this? You notice on the second row, the user's a lot more happy with this cool convertible than they were with the sedan up in number 4, because there was a lot of feedback applied. Maybe they learned some of the things they wanted by going on a motorcycle or by going on a bike. Who knows how that happens? But this is a good example for that. I'm going to show you a software version really quick. Looking at this, you've got a beginning plan at the beginning. Now, that's not a high-level, detailed, exclusive plan. If we're thinking about this in terms of design thinking or in terms of a modern way of doing this, there's planning going out all through this. And planning and delivery and development are all tied together, and they're all interacting with each other as we go down this chain. Same thing happens on the last slide with the idea of going from a skateboard to a car. Now, in this example, we've got a website, a simple website that's being put up. We've got 6 sprints that are shown, and we're doing 2 releases after we start on our first sprint. And it's interesting. This is an example where the product owner, through their conversations with other people and through their interactings, has determined that there could be value for not only the user, but also for us, if we were to get this website to the point where there was a homepage and there was a logon and there was some information on that site. That would provide value. There are different things. We could do A, B, C, D, and E if we have that, which is cool, because if we have none of it, we can't do it. And yes, we could do it if we deliver all of it, but then it would be four more sprints down the road. So putting that out there in release 1's really good. And then they've determined, they said, let's get a little more feature functionality, each one of these items, which you can see each sprint in this case is broken out into something that is a feature that can, based on this example, go on its own. Contacts, orders, printing, reports, probably in some priority order that they've deemed as which one's more valuable, because if for some reason they can only get 2 sprints done and they have to go or they have to release and they can't get back to this work because they've got to go to something else, then they've got something out there, right? So they're always doing it in highest priority order. Some of it's on dependencies. Obviously, you can't have orders and printing if you don't have a home page, if you don't have somewhere to go, if you don't have a site that's set up. So there's some dependencies, but you're trying to minimize and separate all the dependencies as much as you can to make them their own units and to make them small enough that I can release on an iterative basis. In case of Scrum, it's in sprints, to the point where I've got logical releases that make sense. All in all, when you really look at this, what we're trying to do when we think this way is we're applying our predicted velocity. We talked about relative sizing when we looked up a couple of sections ago. And looking at this idea of knowing how quickly we can do something, we can figure out how much work we can get done in a sprint, and we can figure out how much can go in there, and then we can figure out, is that releasable or not releasable on its own. We want to review and understand the dependencies across the work that we're trying to do. In the case of developing the car, the first car, that end unit, you have everything is dependent on all of that stuff until you get to the end. There's nothing you can deliver to the user that is usable by them until all the pieces are done. That is not the way you want to do this. In the modern way, you've got to do it and break it down, even if you have to do more steps, like it showed in the second line, or even if you have to do things that don't actually make it into the end product, but get you towards a better end product. Those are the types of things you want to do. Pulling value forward. Yeah, you can see that in that second line when we were working on the two different ways of developing a car, that there was intermittent value at each stage. It wasn't as much value as the end product, but it had value. So if we had to stop and pivot away from building cars and go build school buses and then come back and build cars again, there would be something all that time that we were doing buses. You'd be getting data back. There'd be user feedback. We would be receiving value, and so would the users be receiving value for what we had done up until that point. None of it's throwaway at that point. It's all still good and usable. We're pulling risk forward. This idea of applying spikes. A spike is a type of story. It's a way to do discovery in an iterative fashion to learn about something, and the deliverable at the end of that is the learnings that you did, and it helps you make decisions moving forward on good stuff. For example, you could use a spike on developing the bike in the third stage of the car, and you could say, we're going to understand what this is. Would a bike be valuable? Yes, we found that a bike would be valuable, so let's build a bike, because we can also get a lot of feedback for that, and then move towards a motorized bike, a motorcycle, and then move towards a car. That's how a spike typically works at a very high level. But the idea of pulling the risk forward, if we had to pivot away from working on this thing, we're getting value. We're reducing the risk that the effort that we put in is going to provide zero value to us as a company and to the user and the user group that we are making this for. So we want to this is also in a lean world, and you'll talk about lean a little later. The idea of minimizing waste. We are eliminating waste by thinking this way and pulling risk forward, because we'll make fewer missteps. We won't, at that first section, when you're going through and you're developing only a car to get to a car, you're not going to find out what you didn't get right until that car starts going off the lot after the fourth stage, which is way down the road. That is injecting a lot of risk into your project, and you want to pull that out. So you want to learn as you go and apply what you learn. That section that shows on the bottom definitely allows you to do that. Even the example we gave with the software, where we had 6 sprints and we showed 2 different release points, we are learning at each point, and we are applying that learning as we go back. The idea of a minimum viable product or minimum valuable product, that MVP. Each one of those releases for the automobile on the second row was actually something that could go out and be used by someone to move around in some way, shape, or form. If you can create a situation with your design thinking and the way that you're designing things and the way that you're building them in an iterative way through sprints, if you're using Scrum, is to think about it this way. And then value is delivered and the value is delivered and received should something change. So again, if for some reason you're asked to stop doing something and move on to something else, you have value for what you did. It's really, really important. So that's, again, release planning at a very high level.